Hi everyone, this is Joy for Honeybee Stamps. For today's video, I'm going to show you how I made this playful spring card just by doing some fun ink blending on the background. Now I am starting with the image from the Spring Joy Bouquet stamp set. I have stamped this onto some Bristol Smooth watercolor paper. I am using the Karin markers, and I've stamped it in a black ink that is watercolor friendly. Now I am starting with my yellows. I'm using Canary, and I'm actually going to bring in some gold. But what I've done on my work surface is sprayed a little bit of water, colored on my work surface with the marker because I really want this to be pretty light. And these Karin markers are quite full of color. They're very, very concentrated. So I did want to keep this very light. So I'm just using my water brush pen, and I don't use it correctly. I don't fill it up with water, so any paintbrush works just fine. So I laid down my yellow color, and then I came in a little bit with the gold and added some darker shadows, and I will come back in and blend that out in just a little bit. Now I have my pink. This is the pale pink marker, again doing the same thing, coloring it onto my work surface, dipping my brush into some water and running it through that color. Once I've colored all of those tulips, I'm coming back in with that same pale pink and just adding some darker shadows, dipping my pen in some water and just blending that out a little bit more. I'm actually also dipping it into the pink color on my work surface. And as you can see, it kind of softens up that darker color, but you can see how concentrated that color is. Now I'm going to go back with that same canary yellow for these little tiny flowers, and then I'm going to come back with the pink and just slightly go over it. So mixing the two, obviously we're going to get a nice little orange. And so I'm just blending that out, and here is where you can see I'm adding that pink. Now we've got some really light orange flowers. I have two yellows that I'm using. I'm using an apple and an olive green. And so this first green is the apple. I'm using that on the smaller leaves, and then for the larger leaves, I will use the olive green. Also for the stems is the apple green. And I'm doing the same thing, laying down that light color, coming in with the marker directly to my paper and adding a little bit of darker shadows and then blending that back out again with some more water. Here is the olive green, and you can see how pretty that is. I really didn't want a ton of color on this. I wanted the flowers to feel very soft, but I definitely knew that I needed two colors of green for this background. Otherwise, it wasn't going to look right. So doing the same thing, adding some darker parts to it and blending it out with the water. Once I'm done with this, with the flowers, I'm going to come in and use the Praline for the little rope holding, or the little string tying the flowers together. And I just took that directly to, I didn't worry about blending that out. And I'm going to use the coordinating die to die cut this out. And then we're going to be doing some of the ink blending I talked about at the beginning of the video. And this is what's going to make this card playful, is by the colors that we're using for the background. So here is my piece of paper that I'm using, and this is 3 3/4 by 5 inches. I'm using my flowers as a reference, lining this up on my grid work surface, and I'm going to use some tape. Doesn't matter what kind of tape, low tack tape, but I'm taping off a section that we will be doing some ink blending on. So I just want to make sure I get it nice and straight because I don't need any crooked lines. So I'm lining it up, removing the flowers, and then now I'm going to add my piece of tape at the top. And so in between those pieces is where we're going to ink up. So I am using Distress Oxide inks in the Kitsch Flamingo, Cracked Pistachio, and Squeezed Lemonade. So I've got the pink, the yellow, and then the green towards the end. And I love these colors mixed together. And I think this is what makes this card so light and fun and playful, is just the color choices. Obviously, if you picked different colors, it would give you a different mood for your card, and I just think this is a whole lot of fun. So once I'm done blending those two together, I'm going to remove the tape, and we've got this great taped off line for the front part of our card. Now, I want another piece behind that piece, and I'm going to ink it up exactly the same way. So from the left to the right, doing the pink, the yellow, and then the green. And of course, between the pink and the yellow, you get a little bit of orange. And the pink and the green, you kind of get a yellow green. And so I just like that. And it matches that front panel piece, and so it really kind of pulls the whole card design together. Just using the Honeybee Stamps blender brushes, blending these colors nice and good. And as you can see here, we've got this beautiful background, but really we're only going to see very little of it, but it works out perfect for this design. So I'm adhering that piece, and that piece is about 4 by 5 1/4. I have that adhered to a white A2 size card base. I have foam tape behind that top panel for dimension. And now I'm going to stamp the sentiment into my MISTI and do some heat embossing with gold embossing powder. And I love Honeybee Stamps sentiments because they've got coordinating dies for that. So I'm going to use that and run that through my die cut machine. And this sentiment, I love the script. The font is so fine and thin, and it's so pretty. So now I'm going to adhere the flowers directly down to my card panel. We have dimension with that top card panel because that has foam tape behind it. So I didn't need to add foam tape behind the flowers, but I am adding foam tape behind the sentiment, and that will give dimension. And I'm going to center that in over the flowers. And I'm going to add a few highlights with a white gel pen. I also brought in some of the Playful pastel gem stickers. And as you can see, I added some pink and green ones down around that inked strip on the background. And just adding a few of these highlights to finish off the flowers. It's not a ton. I wanted to keep it quite simple. But on the pink flowers and on the yellow flowers, I really didn't do anything on the leaves. I wasn't worried about that. And then that card is completely finished. And isn't that just a fun card? It really just screams spring, and it makes you just want to go outside and have a good time. Well, me anyways, that's how I feel about it. So anyways, thank you guys so very much for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed this project, and I will see you soon. Bye.